These are the cars arriving on Sunday the 7th of July. Sunny weather ensured a good turnout yet again this year, and with the national weekends of the TR Drivers Club and Club Triumph being held on the Gaydon site, this had the added benefit of markedly increasing the numbers of cars present for the British Leyland Day. Now, I'm not intending to talk over the whole video, as that would detract from being able to simply enjoy the cars, but I will pick out some interesting or more important models, as some people complain that I sometimes create these videos without any narration. This has been shot in 4K, so best suited to a large smart television or 4K video projector, but for those watching on a computer, you should be able to at least upscale this to high definition. This is actually a factory-produced TR7 Sprint, which means it has Triumph Slant 4 16-valve engine installed. Unlike the Dolomite Sprint, the TR7 actually has room for a proper exhaust manifold, and so around 5 bhp more is produced in the TR7 than in the Dolly. The SD1 is my favourite of all Rover badge models, and this is John Harper arriving in his suitably 70s attired avocado green example.
Alright, I've got the same space for you by putting two cars in. I'll give you a ticket when you get here. Yeah, I'll bring it.
It's instant stuff, isn't it? Yeah. What are you doing there? You working?
This is the very car that John Handley and Paul Easter used for the reconnaissance of the European sections of the 1970 World Cup Rally. Paul Easter shot some Super 8 film on the recce, and I have a copy of this showing the car on the very same trailer that we see here.
How do you? That'll be fine now, you don't.
see the pictures, but when you see it's not rained here, is it?
I've come up from Kent, 3/4 of the way. Went halfway up the M40. It's raining.
We only had a shower yesterday.
Had a bit of excitement with the engine.
This beige TR7 drophead belongs to Mike Cutmore, and it is one of the best you will ever see. You could eat your dinner off that, couldn't you?
Yeah, well, we thought it was the head gasket, but it wasn't in the end.
What was it?
Well, I think the exhaust had been on there probably too long, stainless steel, and it just got blocked up in the end, so it was blown back into the bottom end as well,
Right.
pressurising the coolant, putting it out the overflow. So, yeah, nice little rebuild. Just done its running 1,000 miles.
Looks fantastic. How long have you had this one, Mike?
31 years now this year, yeah.
God.
It's long enough, isn't it?
Here we see Mark I Range Rovers being marshalled by ex-Rover man Chris Elliott, who owns chassis number 5, which has been on display by Land Rover for about 5 years now. I wonder if he will ever get his car back and actually drive it again. We'll see. One amusing story about the Range Rover. Spen King was insistent that there was no way this model will be able to do the ton, and after some discussion with his development engineers, he wanted to prove the point, and so took to the road to drive one flat out. That he came back with a speeding ticket from the police for 100 mph proved that the Range Rover could indeed top the ton. Well done, Spen. The Rover 600 was headed up by Peter Morgan, along with David Wade and Mike Kinnear. This team will go on to head up the Rover 75, which turned out to be the best engineered car ever to wear the Rover badge. This perhaps illustrates how progress made on one model can have a good influence on what comes after it, if a company is fortunate enough to keep a great team of engineers in place. Another great name from our British Leyland past is the Maxi. I often think that this name will be more suitable for some of the bigger versions of the current Mini that are emanating out of Germany. Fortunately, the old pressed steel Cowley plant is still producing something that is more worthy of the great Mini name, but it's just my opinion that Maxi Mini for those bigger versions coming from Europe might be a good change to make. BMW are selling a heck of a lot of Minis of all persuasions, so I suppose there is no sensible reason to risk such a monumental success story. It is a business after all. This is a new wing of the British Motor Museum. The ground floor is dedicated to Jaguar, and among all those artworks is one in particular that grabs my attention. The Group 44 Jaguar GTP car that returned the famous marque to Le Mans in 1984. The museum's main building houses a couple of Group 44 Jaguars, and we'll take a look at these later. Anyone who hasn't been to Gaydon for a few years really should take a fresh look. The museum is better than ever and continues to improve. For me, it's the best motor museum in the world because I'm a British car enthusiast, and there is nowhere else that houses such a fine collection of important cars, particularly experimental and prototype cars, many of which never actually went into production. What? This is one of the development cars created in response to the Unsafe at Any Speed campaign led by Ralph Nader in America. It wasn't like there was anyone else in the world the Leyland engineers could ask for guidance, and so everything had to be worked out in-house from scratch. And this is a very important car. It's the sole surviving SD2. The badge on the front simply reads Triumph 1500, but there's a slant 4 16-valve fuel-injected sprint engine in there. Unlike the Rover SD1, SD2 was to wear the Triumph badge, and I'm reliably informed that it was the best handling car we had created up to that time. The model was all but ready for production, but lack of money resulted in it being passed over for the Honda-based Triumph Acclaim. Another very interesting model is the sole surviving Lynx, the long wheelbase four-seater version of the TR7. The original product plan for the TR7 Bullet project was for 6 different models, 3 MGs and 3 Triumphs across 3 different wheelbases. Only the TR7 never came to fruition, with the rest of the range being lost due to the constant lack of finance. An incredible 115,000 TR7s and TR8s were sold over the 6 years of production, but how many would have been sold if the entire range had been made available? As it was, the TR7 stood alone, a sports car that was largely unique and therefore unsustainable from the very outset. Here is what is claimed to be the last TR7. This does not mean it was the last TR7 built, but it does wear the last chassis number. And this is the last SD1. Again, it does not mean it was the last SD1 built, but it does wear the last chassis number.
Yeah.
Another quick announcement from the big K9 Army lorry. The presentations for the show and shine will be at 3 o'clock in the show and shine area next to the Army lorry. So if anybody is interested in seeing the results and coming to cheer on everybody collecting their awards, please do come and join us at the K9 Army lorry at 3 o'clock. Also, if anybody is bored, we do have a word search for anybody who is so inclined.
This is the Mini Cooper Sport 500 register display. The 500 designation denotes the last 500 original Minis produced, and these were built in September and October 2000. I can testify from personal experience that the rust issues on the Mini were never fully sorted, and you can see our own Mini Cooper Sport 500 restoration video, also available on YouTube, for all the details. I was an impressionable 11-year-old when the Rover SD1 was launched during the era of fantastic looking cars from the likes of Lotus, Lamborghini, Ferrari, etc. British Leyland were also creating what I consider to be cars of the future, with the Jaguar XJS, the TR7 and the SD1 at the forefront. But even models such as the 1822 Princess range were pretty futuristic to my young eyes, and it was an exciting time for car styling that made everything that went before look out of date by comparison. I didn't know anything about the safety campaign in America that was driving car design at the time, but this was the reason why everything changed during the early 1970s and why the SD1, TR7 and XJS were considered so important to the future of the British car industry, because they incorporated everything that America was demanding, and much that was done to engineer these models was a world first in order to meet those demands. The Allegro gets a bad press most of the time, but it should be borne in mind that the original concept was for an Austin Morris 1100 range replacement. Hence the style penned by Harris Mann was low and sleek, but this was amended somewhat during development. Another Harris Mann style, the 1822 Princess range.
This one's automatic as well. Luxury model.
Talk about phone calls, Dave.
This is on down the road from you, isn't it? Not far.
That's not necessarily. I'm not sure they designed it.
Well, try and look after that, Karen, now you've had it. I remember now. Still the chap's gone down there, hasn't it? This chap's gone, hasn't it? Eh? The chap's gone.
Yeah.
So if you say yes, I will go and give it to you. I'll go from
So let's get the owner of the Devon by the Devon. No, and the owner of the A35 by the A35. They're both yours, okay. Okay. So who's the gentleman with the blue hat? Oh, okay. And the young lad with the white top?
Chris Allen.
Yeah, we did.
Every aspect of the Rover 75 was designed and engineered in virtual reality using silicon graphics workstations. Britain had managed to remain at the pinnacle of car design despite all the problems, and now that BMW was available to bankroll a world-beating car, our engineers did just that. Everything was designed and worked out digitally ahead of the first prototype build, and that included assembly of the car on the production line.
Yeah, okay. So if you see the lady in the colourful dress who's just looking at the phone over there, she'll come over and sign you up. Okay, thank you very much. I'll just go to the museum as JPEG electronically. Do you want it? Oh yeah.
Did start his own program, didn't he?
Yeah.
We're still going.
Timothy, you can't go the other way well.
I haven't seen it. No, they don't do that.
What excited on it sometimes. You just don't seem to happen.
I really wonder why people can't be bothered.
Yeah, definitely. And they don't like
He's quite a young fella.
It's different.
The speed limit is 50 on the yeah. You could get traffic jam.
straight down there.
I'll come with this. I know I've got to go. We can go whatever.
Go round, Lee. He's right, go round.
Good afternoon. All right, Pat. How are you?
No, I think. And has it come down?
Okay, also in second place. These were really close, but anyway, by the way, it was close up the first two.
Every chat. Important person with the camera coming
Jake
through.
Ellison's beautiful Spitfire, that's M.
Yeah, that's all I did.
284L. It's Jim Hammond. XVX 40S, which is the beautiful blue.
Ah, you're happier now.
We have beautiful we have 5 men sort of competing in the same class here, and this is also in this class that before they couldn't train at the car parking, which is a great show.
Great.
So in this class then, in second place we have F214
Which one?
that is German Canoe. That is the silver Oh, well, there we go. So they both polished it. Right. There we go. Well done, guys. Moving on then to the noughties.
Sorry. This is the original museum building, and these days it is pretty darn fabulous. Harris Mann's Xander concept car for Press Steel Fisher's stand at the 1970 Motor Show is now on permanent display, albeit in the wrong colour. The Xander shows elements of TR7, most notably in the wheel arch treatments, which were extremely successful, and therefore no surprise that they were carried over into Harris's TR7 Bullet style. This is the Rover P6BS, with the BS standing for Buick Sports. A mid-engine V8 two-seater designed under the auspices of the great Spen King. It was very capable, and as it could genuinely reach the 150 mph mark, it looked certain to embarrass Jaguar's E-Type, and so after the big British Leyland mergers in 1968 that brought Rover and Jaguar together, that was the end of that. This is one of Bob Tullis's Group 44 GTP race cars, the returned Jaguar to Le Mans. This has largely been airbrushed out of history now, but the return to racing was actually driven by Mike Dale, then Vice President of British Leyland in America. In 1981, with the Triumph TR programme coming to an end and only 3,000 Jaguars being sold across the whole of America in that year, something had to be done. Hence, after some negotiation with the motherland, Group 44 were commissioned for the job, and Mr. Tullius did in fact lead the race for a brief period in 1984, albeit as a result of pit stops. These Group 44 Jaguars were entirely designed, engineered and built in the USA, with even the V12 engines being reworked and cast in America. Group 44 were the factory-backed Triumph team, but after 1968 they naturally progressed to British Leyland as a whole. In 1975, Bob Tullius drove the E-Type in Sports Car Club of America racing in B production and won the national championship. It is quite amazing that this famous car now resides here at the British Motor Museum. Sexy.
This isn't the Rover 2000 as you're going to know. It's the first handmade approximation. The rough idea of luxury family.
6,000 microphones. And everybody did a special on the model. Well, that's it or something. No, I think it was a concert.
Well, that concludes our look at the British Leyland Day and this incredible motor museum. I recommend that anyone interested in British cars should get along next year, but bear in mind that we have just scratched the surface of the museum here and you will need at least a day to do it any justice at all. So I hope you have enjoyed this quick tour and will hit the subscribe button followed by the bell to receive email notifications of future uploads. Thank you very much for watching.